And we're live and we're late. Welcome back to Tommo's post-race Chinwag for the 2024 Miami Grand Prix. Apologies everyone who's here live. I'm like 8 minutes late. But graphics have to graphic, you know. And I'm sure I will have got some of them wrong anyway. I always do. Welcome everyone. Henry, William, IBK, F1 Dude Edits. Anonymous, Danny, Froggy, Charmander, David, Rivethead, Michaela, Philip, Stella, Noodle Boy, Professor Z, DMG, Arters, Alexa, Jerome, Leela, Bashuro, Bernie, Jakesy, Guerrero, Seamus, EDT, Francine, Tina, Dwayne, Just the Human, Saracen Socks, Hugbear, Jamer, and everyone else watching live on YouTube, and everyone watching not so live after the fact on YouTube as well. And of course, as per audio only, just for your lugs, right? Download Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. You can also listen to this as well, not so live. How are we doing, everyone? How are we feeling after what was a weekend? It was a weekend in Formula One, wasn't it? It was quite a weekend. First of all, let's start with race rating. I want to get your thoughts on this Miami Grand Prix weekend. Can you give me some numbers in the live chat, please? And then I've still not charged up my keyboard, so I've got to lean over awkwardly like I did on the last stream because I'm an idiot, but there you go. And I don't have a USB-C cable to hand. Right, it's going to be, there's a lot of high numbers here. So I think it's one of them that we can just put, so it's either a 10, it's a 9, it's an 8, or it's a 7 or lower. Because obviously I know there's many a Lando fan, many a McLaren fan watching this who will inclined to give it a 10. And this is a weekend rating out of 10. Got to specify that with sprints. Okay, this is including what happened on Friday, sprint quali, including the sprint race, including normal quali, and including the full race, the full package. Okay, just because you got more doesn't always mean it's gonna be better. So right, the polls live chat. Give me your numbers. Give me your numbers in the live chat. Because look, Miami, we spoke about this beforehand. You know, this is a track that many of us, you know, myself included, weren't expecting much. We gave it I think it was a mild clang, wasn't it? When we did the poll beforehand. So it's not a banger, not a clanger, but on the lower end. The Miami Grand Prix circuit isn't one that many people were feeling particularly positive about beforehand in terms of the racing anyway. And, well, I do think it's fair to say this is the best Miami Grand Prix we've seen so far. This is the third rendition, of course. And I would say that, you know, the full package this weekend in terms of the wall-to-wall racing we did get, the drama we got as well. Some of it, you know, Kevin Magnussen deserves shares. He deserves stocks in Liberty Media after the drama he gave us this weekend, doesn't he? Okay, Mag. Right, what we saying, chat? What are we saying? 41% of you giving it an 8, 31% of you giving it a 9, 14% a 10, 15% 7 or lower. So you're averaging out just over an 8, probably. Yeah, you're looking at about 8.5, maybe just under 8.5 is your average. 565 of you have voted. Very interesting. Of course, if you are a Lando Norris fan, you're going to have found much joy this weekend in the 2024 Miami Grand Prix. For me, my race rating, and again, not just in the whole race, the whole weekend, I'll give it an 8. For me, it's an 8, okay? It had a lot. Like, the weekend had a lot. It was a really enjoyable weekend to watch. I thought every session was decent. We had good stories throughout. Obviously, you had Ricardo performing massively well in a sprint qualifying and delivering P4 in the race. I thought he dropped like a stone. He didn't. He held on. Kept Carlos Sainz at bay. Huge result for Ricardo on the Saturday. Sunday comes along, and it was like, yeah, we talk about this McLaren pace, and just wasn't able to realise it. You know, Lando qualified 4th, 5th? Can't even remember, 4th or 5th for the race. And then in sprint, he qualified like 9th. So all this potential pace and being like, oh, yeah, but it was kind of frustrating seeing this potential McLaren pace with all these upgrades on Lando's car. Anyway, he got 10 of the upgrades. Oscar got like half of them. And be like, oh, they're just not going to get the opportunity to realise it. And then the race comes along, and a few things happen, and a few things line up. Bit of Magnussen Sargent shenanigans, not for the first time this season. And it plays right into Lando's hand. The opportunity presents itself, and he takes it. First ever win of Lando Norris's career. 8 times he's been second before this. I think it's 14 times on the podium, I think. He's got 8 P2s and 6. I could be wrong. I know Crofty said he got 8 P2s. So it's been a long time coming. It's been a very, very long time coming. And Lando Norris delivers the W. Big. Was it 15? 15 before this. Damn. I got choked up when he didn't bin it final. 15th and 16th was a win. There you go. Lando Norris. Many times the bridesmaid, now the bride. Lando no wins can be signed away. Lando 1 wins is here to stay. He's got to get 9 now because there will be Lando 9 wins. That sounds better with the slander name, you know. But that's not really slander, is it? You get 9 wins. It's a way off that though. It's still got a long way to go until he gets Uno wins. Oh, that's good, Tina, actually. Uno wins. Yeah, Uno. Bit of Spanish. Love it. But yeah, Lando Norris wins the 2024 Miami Grand Prix ahead of Max Verstappen and Charles Leclerc. After the safety car, Lando was ahead and just gapped Max 7.5 seconds. It was about at the end, I think, wasn't it? 7.5, 8 seconds by the end. So as much as Lando got lucky, you take those. You take those opportunities. I've seen a few Max Verstappen, a bit salty Max Verstappen fans, not satisfied with winning every single race. The one time someone else wins a race, they're like, oh, Lando just got lucky. You do remember how Max Verstappen won the 2021 World Championship, right? Was it a safety? I feel like there was a safety car involved with a Williams. Anyway. I know most of you Max fans aren't like that, but, you know, I just found that quite funny. Checo P4, Sainz P5, Lewis Hamilton, very good drive from him this weekend, I thought, P6 in a Mercedes, risky business, aren't they? It's fine. It's all fair in love and war. Max on the radio is like, it's a disaster. You're P2, mate. It's a disaster. But that's the mentality that gets Max where he is, and that's why he's so successful, because he is not satisfied with anything other than perfection. Even when he wins, he's like, even when he puts it on pole, and he's like, yeah, that felt terrible. Everyone else must have messed up. I don't know how I'm pole. I've got a lot of love for Max, I do, truly. Sonoda P7, Yuki Koen delivering 6 points for him in the race. Big for Racing Bulls. Love it. Max this weekend, yeah. My mum had balls, she'd be my dad's. Max's energy this weekend, coming second, I think he enjoys the scrap, you know. You can't tell me that a racing driver, you know, when you're just winning, and it's kind of, it feels like it's kind of quite easy for you to deliver that because he's winning by 20, 30 seconds. And now he's a bit of a scrap. That's got to light a fire in Max as well, a little bit as well. Like, come on, you lot. Like, give me something. Like, this is fun. Like, wall to wall. We saw, like, Lewis had a great time this weekend, even though he was scrapping left, right, and centre with everyone, especially the Hasses. He loved it. He enjoyed it. These drivers enjoy it, you know. So yeah, very good vibes from Max Verstappen this weekend. Enjoyed it. Thank you, Socks, for the super chat. Nice chat. Yes, it's not bad, is it? We'll see. Just a bit of a sample, you know. Do what you got to do. And then Alonso P9, not a great weekend for Aston Martin. George Russell was well P8. He had a bit of a stinky race. He wasn't very happy at the end. And then Esteban Ocon gets Alpine's first point of the season. Alpine actually look all right. They've dragged themselves out of that early season. It's kind of like McLaren in last year. Was it last year when Silverstone Yeah, the start of last year, McLaren were rubbish. And then the upgrade came, and then all of a sudden they were good. Obviously, Alpine are still not great, but I've got David Sanchez now, so. And then Hulkenberg P11, Gasly P12, Piastri P13. Should have been a lot more for Oscar this weekend. Joe P14, Ricciardo 15, Bottas 16, Stroll 17, Albon 18, Magnussen 19, and Logan Sargent P nothing because he went into the wall. He crashed with K-Mag. Right, cool. So driver standings are as follows. Basically, the moves here, I'm not going to go through all the numbers, but the moves here. So Norris moves ahead of Sainz, level on points, but obviously higher best finishing position. Although obviously Sainz has won a race as well. So they both won a race, but Lando obviously has higher other finishing positions. I mean, he got P2, didn't he? Last weekend in China. Other than that, Tsunoda jumps ahead of Stroll. Ricciardo obviously moves up with his 5 points he scored in the sprint. Ocon also moves up. Albon Joe moved down. That's about it in terms of movement. So it's actually a bit of movement compared to what we've seen. Usually I don't have to do much to change this graphic, but I do a little bit more work this weekend. Cry me a river. I had to do a little bit more work. Honestly. Team standings as well. Alpine move ahead of Williams with their un point from Williams. That's about it in terms of movement. Obviously, McLaren, big points haul for them. Should have been more with Piastri, given where he was. He was running in the lead of the race at one point. Was keeping that gap to Max consistent, but then it all kind of unravelled. The safety car timing didn't work out for him, and obviously the scramble with Carlos Sainz was not what Oscar ordered. Not what the doctor ordered. So, team standings are as we can see. Now, what about predictions? Obviously, we did our pre-race Chinwag before this weekend. And I'm gonna spoil it here. We were terrible. Not just me. Because look, I was terrible, right? Max Verstappen race win, no. Banger drive Valtteri Bottas, no. Clanger drive Yuki Tsunoda, absolutely not. Banger team Haas, no. They were okay, but they weren't the banger team. Clanger team Alpine, no. They were actually pretty good. But before you laugh at me, all right? Before you laugh, you also suck, all right? Max Verstappen, no, didn't win. Lance Stroll, banger drive, no. Lewis Clanger, no, he had a pretty good drive. Banger team Aston Martin, absolutely not. Clanger team Mercedes. I mean, not great, but not the worst. Not by any stretch. So, Lomo. There's not one with. Lomo works, but you can't really put L and chat together. We all stink together. Exactly, Spartacus. We all stank together. Okay? That's fine. We can wallow. Okay? In our... Look. It was a great weekend. It was a really exciting weekend. So, if that's what it takes to be wrong. Chat. Nah, don't work. Le chat. We're just all terrible. It's fine. But what about my thoughts on bangers and clangers from this weekend's Miami Grand Prix? Now, there were two drivers that immediately kind of came to mind. And, well, I'm giving it to Yuki Tsunoda. Now, before you jump down my throat, right, for not giving it to Lando, okay? Lando obviously got taken out in the sprint race. Poor sprint qualifying. In normal qualifying, didn't really fulfill as much as he knows he could have and should have, given the pace. And then in the race... Yes, he had the pace at the end to win. It did require a safety car to get it done. Without the safety car, who knows? Just like Max says, you know? Who knows? If his mum had balls, be his dad. Like, we just don't know. But I think Yuki Tsunoda had a more complete weekend from what he could do. Obviously, sprint wasn't great qualifying. He qualified P15. He didn't actually set a lap. He only had one go at it. In sprint quali, didn't set a lap, so didn't set a time, so P15, but then recovered in the sprint to... Did he get a point in the sprint? Was he 8th? He was 8th. He recovered to P8 in the sprint. Great drive from Yuki in the sprint. Then in qualifying, got to Q3, qualified wherever he qualified, and finished P7. Clear of Russell, clear of Alonso, clear of, like, I think Lando won the race, but I think Yuki had the more complete weekend. What can I say? Because P7 for Yuki in a Racing Bulls is huge, especially given, again, Ricciardo had a much better weekend in China. No, not what am I talking about? No, he didn't. He had a much better sprint weekend. I'm going too far back. He had a much better sprint weekend, which would have put a bit of pressure on Yuki. But Yuki was like, no. I am still the captain at this team. Great drive this weekend, Yuki Tsunoda. He's having it. Of course, Lando obviously it was between him and Lando for me. But I've given it Yuki. Clanger drive. Now, again, Magnussen would be the obvious go-to. However, when I deep it a bit more, we'll talk about the Magnussen Sargent incident, because I'm kind of on the fence about it. I'm not convinced Magnussen was merited a penalty for that. But again, we'll talk about it more in a bit. I think someone who had a bit of a worse weekend messed up sprint qualifying by cutting the corner, qualified last. In the race, locked up big time towards the end, lost a bunch of places, just didn't look at it all weekend. Got to Q2 in normal qualifying. Giving it Albon. It wasn't a great weekend for Alex at all. Not at all. So, yeah, I've given it Alex. Sargent beat him in the sprint. Messed up sprint qualifying. Messed up in the race. Outbreak, not a good weekend for Alex. So, I can certainly... Williams isn't great, true, but Williams has never been great since Alex has been in that team, and he's been able to showcase a level, and he just wasn't this weekend. Wasn't a good race for him. Banger team, McLaren. 10 upgrades, you win the race, you have more pace than Max Verstappen in a Red Bull, and even Oscar. You know, you can argue I've seen a few people have a pop at McLaren being like, oh, they kind of threw Piastri to the wolves at the end. But I mean, when he had contact with Sainz, it literally split his front wing. So he would have had to pit anyway. It's a shame for Oscar. But unreal job from McLaren to bring the upgrades they have, to develop that car as they have. Makes teams like Mercedes, makes teams like Alpine look nowhere near good enough. It's doable, it's possible to take a car that was pretty rubbish at the start of 2022 and turn it around. Even start of 2023 struggling, and develop it and move it forward. Crazy. Thank you, Bashuro, by the way, for gifting 5 memberships. You can join £2 a month if you want, and Bashuro kindly has gifted 5, which is worth £10. Thank you, Bashuro, very kind of you. So yeah, I've given it McLaren. No big surprise there. Clanger team, and again, there's a few teams who really stunk up this weekend. Obviously, Williams down at the bottom, Sauber down at the bottom. They're the two main ones, because Alpine actually did a pretty good job. I've given it, and maybe this is just force of habit, but I've given it Sauber over Williams. Mainly because they put Joe on soft tyres for the last 30 laps. They started Bottas on the soft tyre. What are we doing? Why are you using the soft? No one used the soft in the race, apart from Sauber. Why? How are they... What are they doing? What are they doing? Sorry, I just can't... They were just nowhere pace-wise in qualifying, both out in Q1. Joe didn't even get his second push lap in qualifying because they left him out. He went too late. What are we doing? Joe didn't lose many positions on the soft. Yeah, but he didn't make his... He could have progressed. The Sauber, I believe, had the potential to have more race pace than the Williams, but he was on the wrong. Sorry, they just deeply annoy me. They just do my head in, Sauber. So those are my bangers and clangers. Yuki banger, Alex clanger, McLaren banger, Sauber clanger. Right, what about yours, more importantly? Thank you, Bill Wilkins, by the way, for the super chat. Much appreciated. 2021 of you voted. 3 off the year. Close. And your banger drive, unsurprisingly, is Lance Stroll. No, it's Lando Norris. 77% of the vote goes to Lando Norris. 8% Yuki Tsunoda. So there's some of you are out there as well. You can see the Yuki coin dream. 7% Oscar Piastri. 2% Lewis Hamilton. And I think, you know what, those 4 names all kind of, yeah, fair. Those 4 names all kind of come to mind. I appreciate that. It's funny that, how did that happen? That must have been some Reddit thing where like Bottas got 12% of the vote for driver of the day. That must have been some highly choreographed tomfoolery. Good fun. Banger drive Lando. What more can you say? Clang and drive, you lot gave it to Kevin Magnussen. 54% of the vote. 7% Sainz. 7% Sargent. 7% Perez. But yeah, K-Mag obviously a very, very busy weekend for him. Especially the sprint in with Lewis. That was a lot. And then obviously in the race, contact with Logan Sargent, which we will get into the details of it. We'll get a little poll going to see what you lot think. Because I'm kind of on the fence, to be honest, with the Magnussen Sargent thing. Right, so, banger drive, Lando, clanger drive, K-Mag, banger team, McLaren. Shock, 70% of the vote, 12% Racing Bulls, 10% Ferrari, 7% Alpine. Shout out Alpine, actually. Well done, them. Fair play. They've definitely turned a corner, and they seem to be quicker than Sauber already. So, there you go. And then finally, clanger team. Williams. 49% of you went for Williams. 22% Aston Martin. 14% Sauber. 6% Mercedes. Yeah, not good Aston Martin this weekend. Not good. You know what? Alonso was, I think, objectively worse than Lance this weekend, which is not something you can say very often. But that's the thing with Lance. He has that. I think he had a good weekend, and it just happens so infrequently. He got very unlucky with the safety car. Like, the safety car completely messed him up, whereas Alonso profited massively from the safety car. But I think Stroll he had a better setup, it felt like, this weekend. We know Alonso's the more talented driver, but damn. So yeah, they're your bangers and clangers. Lando, K-Mag, McLaren, Williams. My bangers and clangers are Yuki, Alex, McLaren and Sauber. So actually quite different this weekend. But there you go. There you go. Right, cool. So, team by team. Alpine, again. Right. Sorry. Was anyone else screaming at the TV at the start? When Ocon and Gasly are going side by side through that tricky little section with the cone, I was like, what are you doing? And to be fair, like, Ocon held his up because Ocon was on the outside when it's usually Ocon who's the more guilty party of the squeezing and the not giving the space. But Gasly was close, but they just gave each other room, which is impressive in itself that they were able to just about give each other room to get 2 of these massive F1 cars all through that. That was chaos at the start. But fair play, they kept it clean. Just. Could have been a very, very different race if them 2 had come a cropper at the start. But yeah, it's a strange one, isn't it? Because, so Gasly out-qualified Ocon, didn't he? For like the first time this year. In like he's out-qualified him in the sprint before. But Ocon just seems like Gasly had all the upgrades this weekend. Ocon's the one who got to the points. I'm really surprised that Ocon does seem to have pulled a gap to Gasly. Because last year, they were level. If anything, Gasly was maybe slightly better than Ocon. But I think I would say they were pretty equal last year, really. But this year, like, Ocon just seems to be a lot more comfortable in the car. Like, he just seems, I don't know. It's strange. It's strange, very strange. So we'll see. I mean, look, Gasly's a very, very talented driver. He's shown it many a time, but Ocon is outperforming him so far this year. Not by a massive margin, but is consistently a bit quicker, it seems. So I don't know. We'll see how that one plays out. I think there's more to come from Pierre Gasly for sure. Aston Martin. Yeah, I mean, what more can I say? Like, just not a good weekend. Not a good weekend for Alonso. Managed to get a couple of points, but can't say much more than that. And again, he benefited massively from the safety car. They just didn't seem to have a setup. Not really much to say about Aston Martin. They didn't really do much. They weren't really involved in too much. So we'll pass on that. Ferrari, yeah, it was kind of strange at the start, wasn't it? Obviously, Leclerc got passed by Piastri, but then, you know, Piastri was kind of harrying him, got past, and then Leclerc kind of kept within that second of Piastri. The DRS, he was able to stay within the DRS, which then, you know, maybe if Oscar had broken DRS to Leclerc, he could have driven away from him a bit. But then Piastri was keeping that gap to Verstappen pretty static. So, yeah, what I will say this weekend is clearly Red Bull did struggle because, I mean, at the end, in that final stint, there was a period where Leclerc was like reeling Verstappen in. It went down from 3 seconds to about 2, but then it crept back up to about 3. But either way, in race pace, Leclerc was pretty much matching Verstappen, which we haven't seen in any race this year, have we? Like, not as close. So Red Bull clearly were struggling on setup. It wasn't just McLaren have stepped forward and Ferrari have stepped forward. I think it was by their standards, a bad weekend for Red Bull. So yeah, I think, yeah, Ferrari can take a good points haul from this at the end of the day. Obviously, Sainz with Piastri, that was a bit. I mean, Sainz's radios are so funny, aren't they? He's such. If Sainz had got a penalty for that incident with Piastri, then that team radio would have been chef's kiss. That would have been iconic. That would have been iconic head loss from Carlos on the team radio but he didn't get a penalty. But yeah, I suppose we'll talk about the Sainz-Piastri incident now. So the Piastri obviously on the inside, Sainz is on the outside going for the move into turn, whatever it is. And the reason Piastri didn't get a penalty is because it's written in the racing rules that if you're ahead at the apex, basically you're allowed to push the other driver off. You're allowed to take the corner as if no one's on the outside. You're allowed to do... Wait, he did get a penalty. He got a penalty. I completely missed that. Sainz actually got a penalty. Oh. Okay, so Sainz did get a penalty. What the hell? Hang on, how did I miss this? Hang on, what is it? Is it even in my graphics that Sainz finished 5th? What? Hang on a second. It is. He finished 5th behind Perez. Okay, post-race penalty. So Sainz did get a penalty. Because they put the document up at 1:30 a.m. UK time. Okay, Halita. Okay, that makes sense. Okay, so Carlos Sainz got a penalty for his pass on Piastri. I was talking about the other move. Anyway, right. We'll get onto the Sainz move up here. It's a shame we didn't get the head loss on the radio. That is kind of a shame. But anyway. I looked at the standard. I just put Carlos Sainz P5. I didn't even question it. To be fair, I was just like, yeah, P5. I'm just copying the numbers from F1.com. Yeah. Boom. Right. So anyway, uh, was Oscar pushing science wide deserving of punishment? I'm doing a little poll here. So, yes, no, racing incident. So basically say yes if you think Oscar should have given up the position / got a penalty, and say no if you think he shouldn't have, and then racing incident if you think it's kind of on the cusp. On the cusp. Because yeah, obviously in the racing rules as they stand, if you're ahead at the apex, you are allowed to drive the other car off the track. You don't have to give them any room. Now, do I think that should be the case? In my opinion, in what I want racing to be, in my opinion, I don't think that should be the case. It's the kind of corner where obviously there isn't gravel, there isn't grass, there isn't AstroTurf. It is just more tarmac, concrete, whatever you want to call it. And obviously the drivers know this, so Oscar knows if he's not going to give Carlos space, then he can still hang it out. And obviously we saw Magnussen in the sprint go onto that area and then just harpoon into the side of Lewis Hamilton. Yeah, I mean, only 17% of you think Oscar was deserving of punishment. I think given the context of that corner, given the fact it's tarmac, asphalt, runoff, I think it was fine. But I get why Sainz was annoyed, because he's very alongside Piastri, and I don't think that's the way the rules should be written. I don't think if you're ahead at the apex, you should be allowed to just force another car off the track. I think you should give racing room. And he didn't give racing room. Oscar didn't give racing room to Carlos. And he did force him off the track. It's allowed in the rules. Do I think it should be allowed in the rules? No. But the fact that there was tarmac and asphalt and the drivers know this and Oscar knows this, I think it is very different. It just is. Like we say about this all the time, that like, oh, it shouldn't matter if it's, gravel runoff or tarmac runoff. If you push another car off, you push another car off. But because it affects the outcome, that would have affected the outcome massively. Carlos Sainz, we've got loads of gravel. And you guarantee if there was gravel on the outside of that corner, then there would be a lot more people thinking that Oscar deserved a penalty. The outcome does matter because the drivers know. Oscar consciously knows, right, if I push Carlos Sainz off here, he's going to be fine because there's tarmac, that's different to consciously pushing someone off when there is gravel. Anyway, for me it's not a penalty because of that. Because of the outcome. That's the way I see it. That's the way I see it. Just racing. All the time you have to leave the space. At the same time, FIA didn't say they didn't consider. And you know what? Like, it is surely right. If you're a driver and you're going to consciously push someone off onto gravel, where that car's going to potentially spin, get loads of rubbish in their floor, and potentially have to retire because of damage or whatever, versus pushing them off onto tarmac. You are consciously making a different call. Whatever. Right, cool. So that's that. And then obviously, Sainz deserve his penalty that I definitely didn't know he got. Sainz deserve his penalty. So obviously, Carlos making the move on Oscar, goes up the inside into that final hairpin. Again, I can never remember corner numbers. Just an incident on the race. Thank you, Zion, for the super chat, by the way. And the thing is, Sainz sends it down the inside. Fine. But then he does, and he said afterwards, he locked his rears. And that caused him to drift into and hit Oscar Piastri. He's the aggressor. He's the one behind. He's the one trying to make the overtake. As soon as you've lost a degree of control in your car and then you make contact, I think it's pretty slam dunk. And obviously the outcome for Piastri, they can say all they like that the outcome doesn't matter. If Piastri's front wing doesn't break, does Sainz still get a penalty? It's easier to look at it and be like, yeah, that deserves a penalty because he broke Oscar's front wing and ruined his race. So I think it is a penalty because he lost control of his car, you know? And I think that's like literally Carlos admitted to that after the fact. So Oscar turned in like Sainz wasn't there. Yeah, but if Sainz literally, like you have to do a degree of assuming where the other car. So if Sainz is going down the inside, Oscar has to he has to turn proactively. And Sainz lost the rear, and that's what caused. Looking at it for me, that's what caused the contact. The rear popping out where he lost it. Bonk. Broken front wing. Race ruined. And Carlos's race, not completely ruined, of course. 5-second penalty is not, they've been giving out 10 seconds left, right, and centre. So to just get a 5-second wasn't too bad. But yes, Sainz slid into him. I think that's a pretty fair way of putting it. So, did it deserve a penalty? I would say yes. Thank you, Kiefer, by the way, for the super chat. Definitely just an incident. Certainly was an incident. But an incident that resulted in a 5-second penalty. So, unlucky Carlos. Not very vamos. Not very vamos. But yeah, Charles Leclerc, good race from him. Again, kept that gap to Max pretty solid at the end, which, again, shows that, Ferrari did well, but also Red Bull were struggling this weekend. As the door opens, are we going to get a sausage dog? There is a sausage dog. There is a potential sausage dog. We're gonna get some sausage dog action. Okay, I think we might. Let me go and retrieve him. Oh yes. Hello. Here he is. Surprise sausage, everyone. Here's some surprise sausage for the day. Hello, mate. How you doing? Been having a good kip? Oh, have we? Yeah. Having a good sleep. He's very warm. He's very warm. He's obviously been under the covers. Having a kip. Haven't you? Do you want to go on my shoulder for a bit? Let me shoulder you up for a bit. Lovely jubbly. Look at him. Hello, buddy. Mwah. Good boy. He does look sleepy, doesn't he? Or as per. But yeah, not too much more to say on Ferrari. All in all, good job. Oh, Fred Vasseur's vibes at the end were immaculate as well. That picture of Fred doing the champagne when Lando won. Oh, what a man. I love Fred Vasseur. He's quality. He is quality. Right, Haas. Obviously, Nico out the points for the race. Fought tooth and nail. Obviously, managed a point in the sprint. Thanks in a big part to Kevin Magnussen. The thing is with K-Mag, right? Obviously, his exploits on Saturday to keep Lewis behind. He said it after the fact. He deserved all the penalties that he got, and he doesn't want to race that way. But he did what he had to do to help the team and consolidate Nico's position. I do think, right? I think actually Kevin Magnussen, when he launched it back up the inside and pushed Lewis wide, that so reminded me of Max and Lewis in 21 at Saudi. When Max was on the inside, Lewis was trying to pass on the outside, and Max just launched it up the inside, didn't make the corner, pushed them both wide. That is literally that's almost a carbon copy of what Magnussen did to Hamilton in this race. It was, you know what? The only one I didn't like really that I thought was perhaps meriting a because some people talking about getting a black flag. I think the only one that I thought was over the line and could have maybe should have, like when I watched it, I was like, oh no, that's too much. That's too much. Was when he was off the track, Lewis was on the outside in that long right hander, and then Magnussen just shot in and then hit Lewis. Like, that is literally like you're driving off the track and using your car to, like, whether he meant to make the contact or not, I'm sure he didn't mean to hit Lewis, but he came from off the track and he did hit Lewis. And for that one, for me, I was like, oh, I could see him getting a black flag for that. He didn't get a black flag for that, but that was right on the line. Right on the line. Thank you, Zion, for the super chat, by the way. Kamo got so many penalties that will start next time from Shanghai. Should have got an actual drive-through to actually remove the car from contention. You know what? And maybe that is the... You know, we don't really get drive-throughs anymore. I'm gonna give Minton back because he clearly wants to go back to sleep. So say bye to everyone, Minton. Goodbye. Oh, good boy. Good boy. Yeah, I think a drive-through penalty that you have to serve, you know, on your next tour, on your next opportunity to serve it, is preferable to a black flag, and it still ruins your race at the end of the day. So I think a drive-through is probably what I would have for that move specifically. If I was a steward, I would have given him a drive-through because I think that was over the line. I think the other stuff, you know, it was close, but, you know, do what you got to do. And in the same way that he did it with Tsunoda. But I think when you're off track and you instigate the contact with the other car that's driving within the rules, I think that was too much, in my opinion. But look, well, should we talk about let's talk about with Haas. Magnussen Sargent. Let's get a poll going. Alonso and Lewis got drive-throughs recently. Did they? Don't even remember that. Oh look, Minton wants to come back in. Oh, buddy. You did. No. Okay. Just scratching at the door. He just wants attention. Right. Magnussen versus Sargent. Who was at fault? So, K-Mag, can't even spell K-Mag, Logie, or Racing Incident. So, yes, K-Mag, Logan Sargent, contact, into the wall, Logan's race ended. Max said, though, you know, at least I got a spare chassis. That's funny. Didn't look like a crazy amount of damage. Just kind of went very rear on into the wall. So ruined rear wing, but not probably exhaust. Hopefully nothing damage wise to the engine and gearbox. I guess that's always a bit risky. But yeah, obviously Magnussen's trying to make the overtake. Does a bit of an up and under into turn one. He's on the outside of Logan. He is... What's the fairest way? I would say... I mean, his front axle was well ahead of Logan's rear axle. I would say he was 50% alongside. Would we say that's fair to say, chat? His furthest alongside point. 50%, maybe 60, maybe 40. You know? Well, actually, I can maybe get some stills, but that's long. We've all seen it. I'm sure we've all seen it. We've all seen the incident between Magnussen and Sargent. And again, it's alongside. What do you define as being majority alongside? And look, there's a rule that's written, but at the end of the day, I'm not so interested in being like, oh, this is what the rules say, so actually that's the penalty. Like, it's like, what do I think? What do you think? If you're looking at it, do you deem it far enough alongside to be, you know, to be merited the space? So it's funny actually. I did a poll on Twitter, and the percentage splits have been very, very similar actually. So 58% of you are saying K-Mag was at fault, 15% Logan, and 26% Racing Incident. So, obviously, it's fair to say, right? If your front axle is behind the car in front of you's, is in line or behind of the other car's rear axle, then you're not far enough alongside. If your front axle is in line with their front axle or just behind their front axle, I think you're entitled to space, okay? There is a grey area. Where does one point meet the other? I'm inclined with the 26% to give it as racing incident. Logan should be aware that K-Mag's done a up and under on him. Because obviously Logan has to, turn one, he took that at a much shallower angle. So obviously that compromises exit. K-Mag, wider, in, around. Yes, it was an unorthodox, this is what Brundle was saying on the comms. Yes, it was an unorthodox place to put your car. In my opinion, in what I think should and shouldn't be allowed, I think Magnussen was far enough alongside just like any less, no, any more, definitely. Like it's so close, it's so marginal. But I think just for Logan to just turn in and not assume and not at least check and not, I don't know. That felt a bit, I think Logan could have done more. But I would say racing incident because it's so touch and go. It's so fine as to whether Magnussen was far enough alongside. But I also think Logan, you know, if you're taking a shallower angle, you've got Kevin Magnussen behind you, who you know is going to go for any gap and opportunity that's there. I'm surprised Logan didn't assume that he might have a little look up the inside. And at least try and, just for his own race, you know? Just for his own race. So, yeah, I would say racing incident. I probably wouldn't have given K-Mag a penalty for that one. But I think the ones on Saturday were all fair. But I think this, for me, there's culpability on both sides. Because I think it was a bit naive of Logan to just turn in, given that he had to take a compromised line into turn one. That's the way I see it. That's the way I see it. Hello, Z-Trox from Sweden. Welcome. But yeah, 58% of you think it was K-Mag at full, 16% Logan, 26% racing incident. There you go. There you go. And look, this is the beauty of this. Like, that's what I think. You have your thoughts. We discuss them. Lovely jubbly. Happy days. Right, that's Haas done. McLaren, we're going to go in. We're going in alphabetical order here. Yeah, so 10 upgrades on Lando's car. Oscar got about half of them this weekend. Clearly, that was the Lando's McLaren, with him in it, was the fastest car in the race. Race pace-wise, was the fastest car. Obviously, compromised, you know, didn't have a great quali. Lost positions at the start as well. And yeah, look, I think that I think I'm not going to get carried away with this. It's a fantastic result for Lando, fantastic result for McLaren. But Red Bull were struggling. Red Bull were somewhat struggling this weekend, both Checo and Max. Also, sorry, I missed a couple of super chats. Thank you, Prix, for joining Friends of Tommo. Appreciate it. Thank you, Arters, as well. Will you do a blue Ferrari redesign? And is Albon to Merc possible if science doesn't go and Antonelli and Bottas to Williams? What do you think? Will I do a blue Ferrari redesign? No. Not got any plans to. I think that kind of, I would have had to jump on that really soon after it was announced. I just don't think, there's other videos I want to make. And I've got planned for this month. So I did literally Photoshop it all blue on Twitter. So yeah, I did that. So maybe you can actually. Have I got it saved? I've got that saved on my downloads. Maybe. Oh yeah, I do actually. Here we go. This is literally what I did on. Oh, it's too big. So this is basically my Ferrari redesign. Just in Photoshop, I just made it all blue. There you go. That's it. Done, artists. That's my Ferrari redesign. I think it's pretty cool, all blue. And then you got the red bits of the shell still there. I think this looks better than what they actually had, in my opinion. But yeah. Anyway, do you think Albon to Mercedes is possible? No, I don't. I think if Albon, if Science doesn't go to Mercedes, then it's Antonelli. For sure. And obviously Williams are asking about his services, this whole request for get a concession on his super license because he's still only 17. Like they're asking questions so that they know where they stand. I don't think that guarantees anything from Williams' point of view that they're going to take Antonelli on. But it's an option. But I don't see why. Like, what are Mercedes waiting for? Like, because they know Antonelli's going to be 18 by the end of this year. So they could announce just Antonelli now. So like, what are Mercedes waiting for? They're waiting for Max, and then Carlos is waiting for them to wait for Max. So yeah, we'll see. But Bottas to Williams, I think, would be a really good move, actually. Bottas and Albon at Williams, I think that would be a very solid base to grow from. If Vowles and Fry want to play the long game, and if Albon wants to play the long game with this team, I think having Bottas alongside him would be pretty good. And Antonelli's got the super license points already, so Kushti. Thank you, Marek, as well for the super chat. Hulk will have his first podium in 25, first victory in 26. You heard it here first. I hope you're right. But I don't think he's going to get a podium in a Sauber, which is what you're suggesting there. No chance. But we'll see with Audi if they can. And 26 is just all up in the air and it could go anywhere. But I hope so. I hope he gets his time because he deserves it. Hulkenberg absolutely deserves it. But yes, anyway, McLaren. Piastri. Was very impressed with Piastri this weekend, actually. Outqualified Norris in both qualifying sessions. No, he didn't. Oh, that's a lie. He outqualified Piastri in the sprint quali, but then qualified behind him, but not by much, in the normal quali. So one lap pace, and one lap pace seems to be where he's closer to Lando. But then in the race, again, that gap to Max kept that consistent, was holding his own ahead of Charles. Just, he, as much as Lando won out with the safety car timing and that, Oscar lost out. And he was hit by Sainz and caused damage. And I think, again, that incident with Sainz, I think that was just about okay for what I consider to be fair racing anyway. I don't really care about what the rules say. Like, it's just what I believe should and shouldn't be. So yeah, it was a good weekend for Oscar. Like, tough result at the end of the day. Should have been more points on the board, but this is positive for McLaren. This is so positive for McLaren. Damn. What a difference an upgrade makes. 10 upgrades make, should I say. To Imola now, who knows, like, are they going to switch the tyres on like they did? Because everyone was struggling in the heat. The Red Bulls struggling in the heat. And again, I think that's part of why, do I still think Max and Red Bull have the most complete package? Yes, for sure. But we'll see. And I think, do Ferrari have upgrades coming in Imola? Or am I just waffling? I'm not sure. Either way, well done McLaren, well done Papaya. Lando Norris wins, finally. Yes, they do. Yeah, I thought they did. Yeah, so Ferrari upgrades in Imola. Red Bull got the close up was always going to happen eventually. I think it's going to happen too late for there to be a title fight this year, but it's looking good for 25 for being interesting. It's looking good for 25. Mercedes though, Mercedes, another up and down weekend, left and right weekends. Just, these lot aren't at it, are they? They just look. It's an organization, a company is just a bunch of human beings working together. And unfortunately, the human beings at Mercedes in the design department have not been able to keep up with the rate of development and have not made the right decisions relative to what Red Bull, what McLaren, what Ferrari have done. Now, of course, yes, Lewis was able to keep close to Checo at the end. Couldn't get the move done, but he was there. And I think Lewis had a strong weekend, actually. He enjoyed it this weekend. You can see post-race he'd had a good time. And I think it's his and him and George are top quality. Of course they are. And I think you've got two very strong drivers there who are also somewhat covering up the true extent of Mercedes' woes, you know? I think that Lewis and George, for all we know, they're putting in career-defining performances right now just to get that Mercedes to P6 and P8. We don't know. But yeah, it's not good. Not good for Mercedes at all. And they said at the start of the year, I was like, I'm not backing Mercedes to turn it around because they've changed their car up completely from last year. There was always going to be a learning curve. And they're compromised anyway in their understanding of ground effect relative to other teams. And yeah, not good. Look, I agree, SF. I agree. Look, I think Toto's. I think the way things are in F1, what seems to work, and again, it feels like Zach Brown as the marketing man, focusing on running the. It feels like Zach Brown works on the business, and Andreas Stella works in the business. Like, you've got that separation. Toto is a 1/3 shareholder in that team. You be a Zach Brown and get in an Andreas Stella to really spearhead and lead that technical point of view. You've got Ao Komatsu doing a great job at Haas. You've got examples across the grid of bringing in someone who is more engineering. Like Toto's an entrepreneur. Even like Fred Vasseur, he's operated race teams since back in the Is it ART that's Fred's? It is ART, isn't it? I think, yeah, like Toto just, I'm not saying Toto leave. I'm just saying Toto, step up and bring someone in to own it, Yeah, it is ART. Fred's got that experience, that race running operational experience. Toto came into that team and insane power unit at the start of the Mercedes domination. I don't. And some of the stuff he says is just like, I don't think you're helping. I don't think he's helping. Like, he wears his heart on his sleeve, which I think for a driver isn't a bad quality. But I think for a leader, for a team principal, I mean, don't get me started on Vegas, Prix, because that absolutely, that got right in my head. But yeah, I don't know. I just think that they need a bit of change at that team. And yeah, not a good weekend for Mercedes by any stretch of the imagination. They've got again, great drive from Lewis, not great from George. George struggled. He seemed to think at the end there was some issue with the car. But I mean, that's racing drivers for you. They always like to blame the machinery when they can. But yeah, we'll see. We will see. I was good with Toto until Vegas. Yeah, I think that was when it kind of started to show. The cracks began to show. But yeah, team who's bit of a different trajectory, not as quick as Mercedes, of course, but racing bulls. Interesting livery this weekend. On track, I thought it was all right. When I saw the renders, I was like, whoa, that's a lot. I was like, that's a bit too much. But actually, on the car, it looked decent. Right, here we go. This would be a good little poll. Is Daniel Ricciardo back? There's a little poll for you. I've only given a yes or no. I maybe should have given some more options. But yeah. Cheers, David, for the super chat, by the way. Toto has to appoint a boots on the ground TP now. Yeah, I don't disagree. I don't know if that's a job for Allison. I'm not sure if that's a job for James Allison. Maybe they have to look elsewhere. But yeah, what do we think? Is Daniel Avocado back? 32% yes, 68% no. I think this weekend did tell us a lot in terms of qualifying is so, like, more than ever, qualifying is so important. Because the gaps, objectively, if you just ignore, let's just ignore Red Bull as a team entirely, right? Briefly, okay? The other 9 teams, the split is so fine. You'll get Mercedes dropping out in Q1 sometimes. You're getting Astons dropping out in Q1 and 2. You're getting, occasionally, you're getting McLarens and Ferraris dropping out in Q2 and 3. You're getting, well, I can't even, was it last week when Checo was like 15th in Q1? Like, you can get so close to the margins. And it's really interesting sometimes when you look back at qualifying and you'll see someone qualify really well. I can't remember the names, but I remember, I think it was in China. Someone qualified in Q1, they qualified like P15 and they scraped through. But then they ended up fully qualifying in like comfortably Q3 and like qualified 8th or 7th or something like that. Like, you can get caught out in Q1 and then it completely undermines the rest of your weekend. And I think it's one of them where, like, Daniel, obviously, I can't even remember what he said post-qualifying, but he missed out. And look, Gasly had a really good Q1, didn't he? And then he didn't they both went out in Q2, the Alpines. But yeah, you can have like a really strong, and obviously Daniel hooked it up in sprint quali. And he showed in the sprint race that he had the pace to keep Carlos Sainz behind him. Like, he objectively did. He had the pace and the racecraft to keep Carlos Sainz behind him. You go to normal quali, he goes out in Q1. And you look at Yuki, and he delivered, you know, a very similar level of excellent performance in this car to what Daniel did in the sprint race. Yuki delivered in the actual race. But Yuki got to Q3, that's the difference. Daniel goes out in Q1 and it's like, you make one mistake, you get your tyre prep wrong ever so slightly around a track like this as well. And you're out in Q1 and then you're entire, because you're starting from like 10 positions back from where you could potentially start. You know, Yuki could have done better in sprint quali. He qualified 15th in the sprint because he didn't even set his lap. Daniel could have qualified better in, like, I think this race really did show us that, yeah, it's all down to qualifying, because these margins are so fine. If you mess up qualifying, you're so compromised. So yeah, I think sprint proved that there's something there. Like, Daniel can do it. And I don't think that's ever really been the question of whether he can do it. I think most people would say Daniel Ricciardo has the potential to be at a very high level. The problem is circumstance. You know, some drivers can operate at their max potential, whatever they drive. I mean, this isn't, wasn't a good weekend for Fernando Alonso, but typically, whatever he drives is quick. Whatever he drives. And there's plenty of other drivers you can say the same. You know, Charles Leclerc has never been slow in anything, whether he was in the Ferrari or the Sauber. But Daniel, has he got that adaptability? You know, does he have that It's almost like an operating window, isn't it? Like, I think someone like Fernando Alonso, someone like Lewis Hamilton, someone like Max Verstappen, these drivers have big operating windows where they can almost always get the maximum amount of a car, whatever that car is, whether it's a Toro Rosso, whether it's a Red Bull, whether it's a McLaren, whether it's a Mercedes, whether it's a Alpine or a Aston Martin, or Renault is Alpine. And I think Daniel doesn't have that operating window. He has a smaller operating window where, yes, he can have his moments, and he had his moment in the sprint, but also it doesn't happen often enough, and circumstance needs to be. That's what I'm seeing. That's what I'm seeing anyway from Ricciardo. So, yeah, great race from Yuki, great sprint from Daniel, but Daniel still needs to. It's a shame, isn't it? It's a shame Daniel couldn't have had a good race, because I feel like there was good momentum off the sprint to build. But I think hopefully that's enough to see him, because no one likes seeing Daniel struggle. Like it's a very sad sight to see. A man who's shown so much in F1 yet, is having a tough time of it. But there's a glimmer of hope there in that sprint race. So hopefully he can deliver a good result in Imola. But Yuki, once again, Yuki, man. Like, honestly, if I'm James Vowles, I am ringing up Yuki's phone. Who would I rather have? Would I rather have Bottas or Tsunoda? Because I think Bottas is obviously much more experienced. He's worked with Vowles before. Yuki's more of an exciting young prospect than Bottas. But maybe for Williams, actually, Bottas would be the more sensible choice. Either way. Get him a seat, someone, because he's quality. Come on. Thank you, Bernie, for the super chat, by the way. You're only as good as your last race. Well, that's what people say. It's not true. But that's what, literally. Daniel's back. And then out in Q1, he's washed again. Come on. Let's have a good faith discussion here, people. Please, come on. But yeah, no, 60% of you think he's not back. So we'll see. Rebel Racing, again, difficult weekend for them. Couldn't really get the balance. Max hit the cone, which was quite funny. Just the way it kind of held on the car. That could have caused some damage. Didn't in the end, but he got a bit lucky there. And again, the fact that Oscar was able to keep that gap solid to Max, and the fact that Max hit that bollard showed that, Max was obviously struggling, and he was driving. He wasn't taking it easy. But we've got to talk about Checo, haven't we? Turn 1. Oh my goodness. It did cause damage, did it? How much damage? I mean, you could see, obviously, in the slow-mo, him hit the thing quite hard. So maybe, it probably did cause a little bit of damage, to be fair. Which wouldn't have helped Max's progression. But, he hit the bollard. The bollard didn't move. But yeah, that's... Oh, man. Checo. Obviously, we saw in the sprint Lewis send it up the inside. Oh God, we didn't even talk about it. The Lewis sending it up the inside was that was a ballsy move. That I think if that's not lap 1, I think Lewis gets a penalty for that, because it's so he brakes late, and like Lewis knows there's at least 2 cars on his outside, so for him to brake that late and like carry that trajectory, like that is only going to cause contact. But Lewis gets away with it because it's lap 1. And then Checo with that. Wow. Whew. I mean, if he had hit Max, and he must have come within centimetres of hitting Max Verstappen. Wow. That was... oh, that was sketchy. And obviously that was a shame for Sainz, wasn't it? Because Sainz had the jump on Leclerc. Sainz got the jump on Leclerc, but then obviously Checo's trajectory meant that Sainz had to get out of it, and then Leclerc was able to stay in P2. Charles was very lucky there. He was very lucky there. And everyone else was lucky to not get hit. But yeah, Max's reaction in the cool-down room was jokes. What's he doing? But yeah, look, it was obviously, the fact that Lewis carried the trajectory he did, the fact that Checo messed up like he did, that inside line was obviously, not giving the brake performance, not giving the slowdown performance to the tyres that they were expecting. What do you think of Max staying side by side with the... Well, no, he was close, wasn't he, Flash? You're not allowed to go side by side. He was very close to the side of Lando, but he wasn't on the side of Lando. There's a key difference. It was close, but not quite. But he does push the limits, doesn't he? But yeah, Checo survived. Max survived to fight another day. Yeah, Checo's race pace wasn't. I mean, his gap to Max. What was actually? Let me have a look. What was Checo's gap to? Obviously, there was a safety car, so that does change things up a bit. What was Checo? Let me have a look. So Checo finished the race 7 seconds behind Max, which is about the same gap that Lando had to Max at the end. But obviously, the safety car meant that was over a pretty short period of time. So, yeah, Checo was struggling more than Max, but they were both struggling. I think that's fair to say. And yeah, look, you're going to have these off weekends, and again, especially as law of diminishing returns, these regulations. McLaren are going to find more performance. Ferrari are going to find more performance. Hopefully, Mercedes and Aston Martin can do the same. Hopefully, the other teams can pull out some worldy turnarounds. It's not impossible. Again, you look where McLaren were this time in 2022. Look where they are now, winning a race and being the quickest car on pace, not in the wet. Crazy. Thank you, Clinton, by the way, for the super chat. Oh, could you imagine the Red Bull office after if Checo bowled over Max? Would have loved to be a fly on the wall for that. It's funny actually because I know a few people, a few fellow other content creators were invited down to Red Bull this weekend to watch the race at Milton Keynes. It's through like Castor, I think. Oh my God, if Checo had hit Max and you'd have actually been there at the factory to watch it, wow, that would have been. That would have been a life moment for sure. But yeah, you're right. We've had 2 of 6 Grand Prix not won by a Red Bull. But obviously it broke. Max should have had like 20 odd in a row, shouldn't he? This is the first race. When was the last race that... Are we thinking maybe Brazil 22? When was the last race that the Red Bull was just slower? Because George and Lewis obviously finished 1-2 in Brazil and Red Bull messed up. Like, the car was just not set up. Oh, Singapore, obviously. God. Yeah, of course. Forgot about Singapore. Singapore 23. In the last, it's literally Singapore 23, Brazil 22 were probably the last 2 that the Red Bull just wasn't as quick for whatever reason, whether it's set up, because, maybe there wasn't the potential setup in this car. Maybe if you optimize the setup for every single car, McLaren would have still been quicker this weekend. Like, maybe. And no, I don't actually think Smash Factory. I don't think any actual Max fans, speaking realistically, thinks he could win in a Haas. Like, come on. Newey leaving meaning they'll struggle with setup? No, I mean, Newey's not a race engineer. He has done it before, but that's not his forte. So I don't think that would be an issue for Red Bull going forward with Newey leaving. But yeah, of course, Newey's leaving, isn't he? Yeah, I mean, we'll see. Sounds like he's going to take a bit of time. He's not in a rush to make a decision as to what he does next. Give him a little bit of time in the south of France with his missus to just chill and take some well-earned rest. Good for him. But yeah, otherwise, not a disaster for Red Bull. P2, P4 at the end of the day. So Max still extends his championship lead. He's still further ahead in the championship. He's now 33 points ahead of Checo. But Checo's only 5 ahead of Leclerc. So there you go. Right, Sauber. Oh my goodness. This. I feel for Bottas and Joe, because it's like. It feels like the team is just that they're starting Bottas on a soft, they're putting Joe on a soft for 30 laps at the end. Like, it feels like they're just not giving their drivers a opportunity to prove themselves. Like, I don't know. It's very hard because I think they both are well aware that their future is not this team, so they're having to drive for themselves. And to try and showcase to the other teams, look at me, I'm pretty good. and the car and the team just don't seem to be allowing them to showcase their abilities. And look, again, in a merit-based F1 world, would Zhou Guanyu be in F1? No. Would Valtteri Bottas be in F1? Maybe not. I don't know how much. Like, obviously, when Bottas was at Mercedes and when he was at Williams, yes, did a fantastic job in Williams. That's why he got the Mercedes seat. I think Bottas to Williams is what he should be going for. I think he could be of real value to Williams, and he's worked with Vals before. It's not looking good for Zhou. And again, I think his emotion after that Chinese Grand Prix was in part because he finally got to do it, but maybe in part because it's probably he knew deep down that this could be my last one as well. So we'll see. But yeah, Audi, it's going to be essentially a rebadging exercise in the short term anyway. But I'm sure over time they will start. I mean, that Seidl's not going anywhere. But yeah, there's a lot of problems. He's not looking good, bro. Exactly, Aleph. Not looking good. But whatever, Sauber. Move on. And then Williams. Yeah, look, I've already said Alex, bad weekend, not good weekend for him. Move on, live and learn. He got to Q2 in normal quali. Woo, well done. Other than that, nothing to really be too happy about. Logan Sargent, obviously, not a bad sprint. It's 12th in the sprint, pretty good. In the race, Logan's very positive. He stays very positive post-race. And again, maybe, this is just trying to manifest and speak things into existence. It wasn't a terrible weekend for him pace-wise. It wasn't. But yet again, the race ends with him at the back. Nowhere near Alex. Sargent is a really, really frustrating driver to watch and to look at, because when you look at the numbers, when you look at the data, when you look at the gaps relative to Alex, when you look at the pace difference, when you look at the quali differences, it's like he's got it until the point of when it matters. Like in qualifying, it's very common for Logan to be very close to Alex in the first runs of Q1. That's not uncommon at all. But then in the second run, Alex will always find 2, 3, 4 tenths. In the race, he can have good race pace on paper. Suzuka, he was doing a decent job. And then he just drove off the track. This weekend, I think he was naive to turn in and not expect a car to be there, having given the fact he had to take a compromised turn into turn 1. And he ends up in the wall and he's crashed the car. He's such a nearly man. It feels like he's such a nearly man. And he's not worse than Latifi, Liam. He's not. Talent-wise behind the wheel, ability-wise, ability to extract race pace and qualifying pace from a car, he's better than Latifi. He just is. But when it matters, he just fumbles. And there's only so long Williams can, accept that. In their position, when they're struggling budget cap-wise, when they've not got a spare chassis, they do now finally, they need a safe pair of hands. And Mick is not that safe pair of hands, Indy, all right? Mick Schumacher's not the driver that Williams need right now, okay? There are too many questions around his reliability as a driver because he had many a shunt in the Haas. They need a safe pair of hands, and I think that safe pair of hands should be Valtteri Bottas. If Kimi Antonelli gets into that car, that makes no sense for Williams. It makes all the sense for Mercedes. That the only way that makes any sense for Williams is if Toto gives them a serious discount on their engines. Because Williams need a safe pair of hands. They can't afford to be writing off chassis. They can't afford to have a driver who's so close but never getting there. When has Logan had a complete weekend? It's always like there's moments, and it's so frustrating But you look at Piastri and how he's come in and he's taken his opportunities more often than not. Won that sprint race last year. And Sargent, them two, Sargent and Piastri were toe-to-toe in junior formulas, but Sargent just doesn't. And, I'm sure that Williams is a tricky car to drive. I'm sure it's been a trickier car to drive than McLaren, but damn. It's not good enough. Could I see him getting switched mid-season? I could certainly see Bottas being announced as his replacement mid-season. I hope for Williams that's what they do. I hope they sign Valtteri. Because they just can't afford an unreliable driver any longer. And I think Logan's had long enough, to be honest. I'm not one to call for driver swaps mid-season typically, but the promise has almost always been there, but he just can't deliver it. And I think Valves needs to make a difficult decision here. I think he does. I think he needs to make a difficult decision because it's not good enough. And they're at risk of finishing P10 in the Constructors if things carry on as they do. Because I think, again, Bottas a safe pair of hands. But yeah, okay, we're done. That is it. Is there anything I didn't cover from the race? I think that was everything worthy of talk. Again, Lando, well done. Obviously, I've got a bit of a bias towards Lando. Because obviously I did my video with him and Oscar last year, whenever it was. And chuff for him. I think it's a long time coming. I said this actually. Let me get a little screen share. Okay, because I get it, right? People like to throw a bit of mud on the internet, right? And and not always be as kind as maybe they should. Lando gets a bit of banter, right? He gets a bit of stick. I think all drivers do, but I think I put it well here, right? A little tweet. That amount of congratulations and respect Lando received from his competitors tells you all you need to know about how phenomenal a talent, a personality he really is. They are the ones who know him and what he's capable better than any of us. Game recognises game. Lando's a serious driver. And I think now he's got this, got this ticked off, got this win ticked off. Many a podium. Now he's got that win. I hope now that we can start to see and McLaren really give them a consistent package to maybe fight for a championship in 25. I think a championship fight in 2025 is not out of the question. Is not out of the question. But well done, Lando. Well done, Max, for finishing P2. Well done, Charles, for finishing P3. Well done, you, for watching this 1 hour, 23 minute live stream here on YouTube. Don't forget to like the stream. Please drop a like. Much appreciated. And subscribe as well if you're here on YouTube. And if you're listening audio only, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever, make sure you give me a nice rating and tell me that I'm a lovely bearded man. Yeah, got the beard. The beard needs a bit of a trim, actually. I cleaned it up this morning, but needs a bit of a trim. It's a bit too long and a bit too out there at the minute. But yeah, thank you all for coming. Thank you, Pancon, Liam, Flash, SF, Gel, Ian, Cone, Dude Edits, Music is Life, Joseph, Charmander, David, Sense, Galaxy, IBK, Kev, Adrian, Francine, Jerome, DeWood, Sam, Marius, FH4, Joseph, Carlos, Halita, Nikki, Plug, Rex, Anders, T, Darkman, David, Daniel, Aleph, Anonymous. Oh, battery died. Well, that's a perfect time to end the stream. Bye, everyone.